What is up? Today I want to talk about resampling. And I've got the project file open for Unapologetic, my latest glitch up track, which goes like this. So what's interesting about this project file is that it's full of grains. The new sample-based synthesizer by Propellerhead. And you might be wondering whether I've given up on sound design and just use samples now that I found somewhere. But in fact, I've spent a lot of time designing sounds for this track, and they have all been resampled into these grain units. So all of the sounds that you hear have actually previously been synthesized in a serum or in a Europa, then bounced to a file on disk and loaded into a grain to be put into the song. So this is one of the sounds I synthesized. Another one. You get the idea. So why would you do that? What's the benefit of resampling? I have a couple of points I want to make in this video. If you have some more additional things you want to say about the topic, leave them in the comments below, and we can all have a jolly discussion about resampling, which is a lot of fun actually. Which is the first point on my list. It's a lot of fun. No, the first point on my list is actually the most obvious one. It's a huge CPU saver. So the CPU load of like 6 or 7 serums playing together with all their effects engaged is too much for my computer to handle. Even though it's fairly high spec, it will stutter and freeze. Using samples and grain, that problem is not there at all. I can even record with OBS, which has previously also been a hassle. But even with this fairly complex drop with full of different bass sounds, no problem at all. I can record and play it back without stuttering. And the DSP meter stays about halfway up because of all the mixing. But other than that, like, CPU load is minimized. Another benefit of resampling is the workflow. I've come to really enjoy the workflow of using samples and not having to worry about thousands of automation lanes in the sequencer when you're making a drop. Because each growl has the bandpass filter automation in it, and it's all in the sequencer cluttering up. And when you want to copy a part or want to like simply move it somewhere else, try out a different kind of succession of growls, it's a hassle to copy everything around and make sure it's all in lock. But using samples and resampling them, all of it gets a lot simpler and a lot less hassle-ridden, and you can move things around a lot more quickly. So that's a big plus for me. Also, I like the idea of separating the more creative sound designing from the more scientific mixing aspect of production, but that might be a controversial topic. Some people might like to go back and fiddle with the knobs on their patches while they're mixing, but I found that doing this, I'm never happy with anything and I end up just benching projects. So committing to a sound is actually what gets songs done in my experience. So resampling obviously encourages it so that you commit to a sound and you're done with it. There are a couple of other things I want to touch on. For example, using grain, we have a lot of creative possibilities after we've bounced out the sound from our synth. For example, on this patch, I used the spectral grains to get a metallic kind of effect of a very dry sample beforehand. Using spectral grains, we can kind of change the harmonic content and have a lot of creative possibilities there. Other things that we can do is, like, we can choose which part of the sample we want to play back. We can even reverse the sample. All of these things that we cannot do when they are a synth patch are now accessible to us. Also, we have attack and release and playback options in grain, which all offer us a lot of control over the sound. Another cool thing is that actually once the sound is in grain, it will always produce the same sound in the sequencer. What I mean by this is if you have a sound which uses unison and random phase, it will sound different every time you hit a note. And that can be good, but in many cases you want to make sure that you know exactly what's coming out of your synth so you can mix and master the sound so it's perfect for you. And resampling obviously solves the issue of randomness because you just choose the one you like best and it'll always sound the same once it's in grain. Last but not least, I want to talk about the benefits of a sample library as opposed to a patch library. Obviously, you'd optimally have both, but I enjoy going through samples much more than going through patches. if you go through patches, you have a lot of things to explore using the macro knobs and buttons, but it's a fairly slow process, and some patches take a long time to load up. Using samples, you can skip through a lot of variants of a same sound very quickly by just going through the WAV files and then choosing the one you like best. So I found that to be a lot quicker and more satisfying. And also, sample libraries are a lot easier to share with you than patches. Previously in tutorials, I had to make sure only to use Reason native devices, so I can share the patches in a refill. Now, using a more sample-based approach, I can just drop and bounce a lot of samples and then share them with you. And that's exactly what I plan to do in the future. And to give you a little taste, I've bounced all of the samples I used in Unapologetic and a couple more and uploaded them for use to download. So there are 72 high-quality glitch hop samples which you can download right now with the link in the description. And I hope you enjoy them and make some kick-ass tracks. Don't forget to send the track to me if you've used a sample or something, and I'd be very happy to hear it. And check out what you can do with the sounds. Alright, thank you for watching. Have a good one of whatever you're having.